It comes out fairly often, actually normally within about 12 months of an election. Interesting what's going to happen in the next 12 months in New Zealand, because it's a Winston Peters hallmark conversation around raising the age of retirement, and Treasury has given out some warnings over the cost of New Zealand's ageing population. Got a little bit of video for you here to check out.
If you want to have choices, if you want to have a comfortable lifestyle, it is going to cost more.
What do we mean by comfortable lifestyle in retirement?
Well, in terms of the way we've looked at it, it's not about a really extravagant lifestyle. It's about having some luxuries, having some treats, having some choices about what you do, not being constrained by your income.
How hard do you see some people living, given the fact that they've retired, they've probably worked hard all their lives, they're on super? How hard is it for them?
Oh, for some people it is really difficult, and you hear stories about elderly people, for example, that never turn the heating on because they simply can't afford to. They simply layer up with lots of clothing, blankets and things because they can't afford to turn that heater on.
So one of the warnings from Treasury is currently the spend of GDT, I think, is about 25% on the elderly, and it's going to raise to 35%. So there's significantly more money going to be spent on an ageing population because we're all living longer. There is absolutely, it's unequivocal that there is going to be a time in the immediate future that something needs to happen with superannuation. Either the retirement age needs to go up or means testing needs to come in. They're probably the only two
options.
Possibilities, but it needs to happen.
Yeah, it does, and it will. Most likely one, probably the less messy, is you just bump the age up a couple of years to 67.
I don't, I mean, maybe less messy. I don't agree though. I think that actually the best thing is means testing.
Yeah, I know, but they won't do that. But they'll go to 67.
Yeah, but if they did means testing and they did it on quite a high threshold, I mean, I always talk about Sam Morgan, who sold Trade Me for $200 million. He doesn't need retirement. His dad doesn't need retirement. You know, they've got the money, and I think that if you could use the money for the people who need it at the age they need it, and not give it to the people who don't need it.
Oh, that would be good.
If I had $200 million, I wouldn't be the kind of taxpayer going, oh, I'm due my $137
I would hope
a
not,
week.
because that would be dastardly of you.
But I actually think, okay, I'll acknowledge you are probably right, they'll go for the raise being age.
They'll go for the easy
But I think
option.
that the better option is means testing.
Yeah, I think you're right there. 67 though, that's an interesting one, because John Key's been asked about this quite a few times, right? In the past, he's not going to be the one to do it.
No,
it's not going to be his thing.
It's a poison chalice.
It is. Someone will have to do it eventually.
Yeah.
Probably, if you look at what Treasury's saying there, sooner the better, really.
Well, this is, as I said earlier, this is a classic Winston Peters issue, which is, it's great for him, it's his demographic. But I remember either the last election or the election before, they all kind of blur into one. Yeah, they do. That he was talking about the attack on the elderly by the age going up. Yeah. And it's like, actually, I remember saying, I was working in radio at the time, doing talk about going, actually, this is an attack on me. I was in my mid-30s, and it's going to go up in 20 years' time. It's not an attack on someone who's 65 now.
No,
it's an attack on the 30 and 40-year-olds. But the other thing that was found out and proven in that is they're talking about, say, taking it up 5 years over the next 20 or 30 years, incrementally, and it's projected that at the end of that 20 or 30 years, our life expectancy will have gone up by 5 years.
I know.
So in other words, it's really just shifting. It's shifting it at the moment, not really. So look, I mean, they could bring in means testing tomorrow and affect the people who really do need it. It wouldn't affect them.
That's right.
So
if the age was still the same at 65, they could bring in means testing. But so I think they'll go with the other option. It'd be a lot easier, just blanket 67. When that happens, I'm not entirely sure. Next term after, be the term after.
Well, it'll be. I mean, it's the interesting thing that, you know, it's national. The other thing that annoys me about politics, it is a national policy. I mean, national is about small government. National is about fewer taxes, fewer regulations. That's what the right centre-right talks about. The left is the ones that normally support things like keeping superannuation where it is. But because national is so popular at the moment, it's becoming a left policy because they need to differentiate themselves. So they said last time they were going to put it up. We'll see what happens next year. But I had one other thought earlier this week. I was listening to a person talk about global warming. And they were talking about the tipping point of global warming. They were talking about, you know, there's going to come to a point with what's happening in the environment that if we don't do something now, it will be too late. And I just had the thought, it feels like the same conversation with the ageing population and the finances it costs to sort that out and be able to provide for the ageing population. If we don't do something about it now, there's going to get to a tipping point where it's going to be too late. And that's going to be different from the environment, like the world blowing up. But it might be, okay, so we can't gradually build up to a 2-year increase, it's coming in next year. That might be what happens if we don't get onto it now.